Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the J-Free, the J-Free 906 podcast. Mike Owen and I here with you tonight, and we have special guests Kaleb and Pete Kelsey. How you guys doing? You're both muted. If you want to click on it real quick, there you go. Yeah. How you guys doing?
Great. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing fantastic. Even better with you guys showing up here tonight. This is awesome.
We'll try and be as good as your regulars here. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I tell you what, and Shannon is going to be Shannon and Mike Owen are co-hosting for the upcoming episodes for season 5, which we can't wait for. Getting started here on the 23rd, if you all don't already know, the 23rd of April. But Shannon, she's had a rough week and she could not make it tonight. So we gave her the night off, and Kaleb said, well, you know what? I can jump in there, and Pete was all about it. So glad to have you guys here with us tonight. So what we're doing on this particular one is we're going to kind of take a look back at season 4 and go through some of the highlights of season 4, because I tell you what, in my opinion, and I think Mike would agree, that season 4 blew away 1, 2, and 3 a long shot.
When you said that we should come up with the high points, I'm like, what? That I don't even know where to start with that. Are you kidding me? It was crazy. It does really get crazier every year. Anytime I meet someone who isn't familiar with the show, I'm like, start at the most recent, work your way backwards, because it's crazy.
Yeah.
So hopefully season 5 continues that trend.
Well, I know.
I honestly tell people to kind of skip through season 1 and just go to season 2, because like season 1, we were still trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
And we had some interesting things, but nothing real like hard or real crazy, I guess, or like that really good hard evidence.
Yep.
Yeah, and then season 2, the one thing that we always talk about still from season 2 is the rabbi experiment.
Yes.
I think a lot of things that we're doing currently have a genesis from that. So, and the results that we got from the FLIR camera that Eric took out, and then I want to say that's also the year. I want to say it's actually the episode after that one that we obviously bring in Pete Kelsey here, and where we get the no data inside Homestead 2 also. So
yes, I remember that with the slam scan. Yeah,
the slam scanner there, and I think those 2 episodes really are again the genesis for a lot of things that you're seeing now and will continue to see. So
yeah, that's amazing.
I agree with Kaleb. Skip season 1 because I'm not in it.
Well, I wasn't going to say the obvious here, but Skinwalker Ranch doesn't really start until Pete Kelsey comes in.
Yeah, it is.
That's when all the fun begins.
I'm kidding.
Are we though? Are we really kidding though?
Oh my goodness. Well, I tell you what, that's when you start to see things, and I love it how it is now for everybody. When you guys have somebody new come out to the ranch and they're standing there, we always, and for us watching the show, you have that meeting out there just outside of the command center. You guys are all meeting with them, and they're all confident about their equipment and their technology and everything. Yeah. And you guys are over there going, yeah, just wait. You thought you never had a problem, right?
Yeah.
You too will be skinwalkered.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Those are some of my favorite flashbacks for those moments after it happened to me, and then watching other third-party folks come in and get skinwalkered and just go, go some basic training. It gets worse.
Yeah, it gets worse. It doesn't get better. It gets worse. Oh my gosh. How true. Well, thanks everyone for joining us here tonight. We hope you have a good evening with us and Kaleb and Pete, of course. But like I said, we're going to kind of talk about all of season 4, at least the highlights. And like Mike said, there was so many of them to go through. Certainly was. And we're going to try to just touch on some of them because we only got a limited amount of time. I can't keep you all here for 24 hours talking about them all. So we'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. But again, it's nice to have Kaleb and Pete here because not only did, we watched it on television, they experienced it. So they can give us, and remember, season 5 is coming out. They've already been out. Remember, this is like almost 2 years ago for these guys were the stuff we're going to be talking about. So oh, there you go. Will you guys be doing a chips and salsa before the start of the new season? I don't know.
So I'm not sure exactly what all I can talk about yet in regards to it, but we have a bunch of updates coming out in regards to the website itself. Kind of a new platform, and right now it's kind of spread out, if you will. Like we have people going to the live stream, we have people going to Discord, we have kind of these different areas a lot of people are going to, and what we're trying to do is bring that all into one place. And a couple of people are, I know we have like a test group right now, and with a select number of people of the insiders, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback. And I think it's going to feel really familiar to a lot of people.
Pete got skinwalkered,
right? So there's going to be some updates there that are coming out, and a couple other pieces that I'm really excited about for everybody. But I guess answer that question more is we're going to try and do something in the next week or two on that platform with everybody before the show comes out. And then obviously the talks are we're still going to try and do like what we did last year, where when one of the episodes comes out, we try to do something a couple days later as a team to really walk through the episode with everybody and try and give some good answers on that stuff. And I think this new website is going to really help facilitate that with how many people really are getting onto the website now. Whenever we're doing live events, it's a lot harder to have, this last 2 years, it's been a big growing experience, with the amount of people that jump onto the live events and stuff. So some good things there, and we're going to try and keep doing, not necessarily chips and salsas maybe, but we are going to be doing those live events again. I know we haven't done any for a couple months, and I'm sure people are going, what's going on? So, but
well, they're always so good because we get a chance to, like you said, after the episode airs, and we get a chance to kind of hear more of the story, which really, I mean, that's a wonderful thing for anybody that is an insider, for sure.
Oh yeah, season 5. Let me put it this way: is like season 4, we had a lot of really cool big stuff happen. And we always, people can usually kind of point to like season 2, we was again like the Rabbi Experiment. That was like the one thing that was like pretty big and was like, holy crap, and just blew everybody's minds away. And season 4, obviously, we had a lot of really cool stuff, and some of that stuff again maybe felt like you could see where we had come from and got to that. That experiment, and we're trying to get more information. I'm thinking like the Mesa and infrared, we're using those things in these different experiments. But then season 5, we're using a lot of these same technologies. Pete brought a lot of really cool stuff out multiple times, but like season 4, maybe 2 things that were like that really big, crazy, mind-blowing thing that all of us were going, what the crap did we just see? Season 5 was like 5 of those things.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, it started and it didn't stop, and it was nuts. Pete, I'm sure like Pete's like the rest of us on the team right now. Like when it comes to some of the stuff, I'm still trying to wrap my head around some of it. And I'll say one of the things was actually made me actually have that pause of what are we really dealing with here, and how like it's a pretty scary. It was a pretty scary situation when you really look at it. And I'll tell you, broad daylight. around the time during one of our drilling experiments, and or when we were drilling, but yeah, it's like I've been told they're going to show that situation, and when people see that, I'm really excited because it's going to tie back to something that happened to me a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And season 5 for me, we kind of did some of these extra episodes that they're going to also be airing where we're answering questions as a team, and one of those questions was season 5, what if I could describe it in one word, and for me it was validation. And you're going to get to see a lot of that. And then again, that's really exciting for me because I'm sure you guys have heard me mention that I've been like doing a book and trying to consolidate all these experiences into like a journal. And when people see season 5 and they go and see this and read through that, they're going to start seeing all these dots that I've been talking about. So I'm really excited for a lot of this stuff to come out, because I've told some stories in other settings, and I'm sure you guys have heard some of them, but on top of some of the photographs that I've had over the years, we had some stuff that we caught in the show that are exactly like some of these stories that I talked about. So
wow, I tell you what, I can't wait. I mean, you just teased season 5 incredibly. So yeah, so that's going to be great. We're really looking forward to it. I wanted to say too, if folks, if you like the content, I've seen a few people jumping out there. Thank you very much for reminding people. Give us a thumbs up if you like the content of our show tonight, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate that very, very much. It helps out a lot with the YouTube thing and all of that. So yeah, so there are some highlights of season 4, and I can't go too far before we were, as being an insider, we have the Skinwalker Ranch, Skinwalker-Ranch, that we get to watch the live feeds that are out on the ranch all the time, the cameras that are going on, which is phenomenal. And also the Discord channel that's also available for us. And you guys are popping in there all the time. And you guys, that's how I wrangled you tonight with Shannon being down. I wrangled you. I saw you on there, and I just made a comment that, boy, it'd be great to have you on the show tonight. Boom, you just volunteered or jumped on it right away. And so did Pete. Pete showed up later, and I was like, let's get Pete, So, but it is
again.
Yeah. And that gives us some, an opportunity to actually talk to you guys, which is a fantastic thing. But I would be amiss because earlier today, I was out there chatting with some folks, and I threw up a picture that I had of Professor Bard, as I like to refer to him. And he shared one that he had that I'm going to share with you all right now. And he said, do with it what you will. Oh my gosh, people have done some crazy things with it. But I'm going to show this real quick. And I tell you, honestly, it is like, secret agent man, Eric Bard. Tell me what you think of this, folks. Look at that. I mean, what do you think of that right there?
Wow.
Very photogenic.
That is great stuff right there. So Professor Bard, I tell you what, I'm going to wrangle him. He has been on the podcast once. Him and I had Thomas on, and Thomas and I were talking. He says, hey, do you mind if Eric's here? Do you mind if I bring him on? I'm like, do I mind? I mean, no, I don't. Eric. So he went and got him, and he was able to come on until he had a meeting, but it was really, really cool. So but that's the neat thing about the Insider program, is that we get an opportunity to actually interact with you guys on a different level, which is unprecedented in anything like this. So we really appreciate that. And I had to show one more, and I did show this one to Eric earlier because it's one of those times because the production company always seems to catch him. I think he calls it his befuddled moments, and he hates it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna Eric, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna throw this one out there too. It's the Eric is the I call it the face of witnessing a strange anomaly. And there it is right there. Look at that. I mean, you can't be
yeah. He's very happy when they show a lot of these. So
yeah, I know they are. And it's like that's one of those things that but I gotta tell you too that I really appreciate, and I see that Jim Kelgard, sir, Thank you very, very much, Jim, for the Skinwalker Ranch and Jay Free Taco Fun. Cheers. Yes. Thank you, Jim. Jim, and I see Jim and also his sidekick, Roger, is out there also. They have a podcast called Soul of the Unexplained. If you haven't checked it out, you need to go out to YouTube, check out Soul, SOL of the Unexplained, and you'll get to check out both Jim and Roger doing their stuff. And I met them both at Phenomicon. Great guys. They know both of you very well. So check out their podcast. Give them a listen because they do a great job. So thank you very much, guys, for that. I appreciate it. But I would be amiss if I didn't also share with you one of my favorite pictures of Mr. Pete Kelsey. You know,
Yeah.
the man, I
Yeah.
mean, and you kind of
Wow.
did this too, Kaleb. You guys were hanging out over the edge of Cameron's helicopter there, working during some really crazy times up in the skies above Skinwalker Ranch. Oh, look who's
Oh,
there!
look at this
Oh,
cameo.
You can't- no.
Hey,
Chips
so,
and salsa.
look, I'm not saying it's chips and salsa, but I brought chips and I brought salsa.
I didn't want to say anything. You had to try and get Eric, and I was
Oh,
like, well,
Eric.
I'm just gonna let this be a good surprise.
Oh,
Yeah,
Wait a
so I'm
minute,
not
Eric.
leaving with them.
That's fine. You can keep
Yeah.
him here.
In
It's
fact,
great.
this is the power pack, like sequel to chips and salsa.
Yes.
This is chips and salsa and guacamole.
Yes.
So,
holy, even that.
Get back to
Oh,
work.
oh, man. All right. Thanks a lot.
Whoa.
See you later. Eric. You can pop
Eric,
in
Eric,
anytime.
you got to
love
remember
having you
the restraining order you just violated.
on. Oh my goodness. Yes,
He
Professor-
knew I was doing this, so you know.
That's
I had
fantastic.
to.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. So yeah, so you guys have both, and this started us off with episode number 1 of season 4, having
Mhm.
Pete hanging out of the helicopter, going up there and using I think you had was that the slam scanner you were using at that point?
Yep.
And going out, you were hanging out over the edge and you were scanning Skinwalker Ranch while things were going on. You want to take us through that for just a minute? I mean, you got jostled around a little bit too as you were doing the work up there?
Yeah, that was an interesting morning. Geez, where to begin? So, because the scanner is mobile and because there are FAA restrictions in terms of how high I can fly a drone legally,
Oh, yeah.
I was like, hey, what if we take the mobile scanner up in the helicopter and see what we get? And well, we got some interesting results.
Yes.
How do I put it to you? The thing I remember was, well, of course, it's a great adventure hanging out of a helicopter, but
Mhm.
because I was plugged in, I had comms with, Cameron and
Mhm.
Travis was on there too.
and Travis. Yeah, Travis was sitting in back of me. And what I remember the most is Travis saying at a really high volume, higher than normal Travis. There's Travis and then there's Travis.
You said it, not
Clearly.
me. So.
He was clearly excited. He said, we have data. And I remember saying, I can't say what I said, but it was what fill in the blank. I didn't. It was impossible, right? It's not possible. The LiDAR sensor, any LiDAR sensor, requires something with mass to get a return.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at. I can't see anything, right?
Mhm.
And I just remember that Travis saying we have data and thinking, really? And he actually leaned around me and he showed it to me, and that's as close as I came to falling into my straps.
Wow.
As in, not out of the helicopter. It was.
Yeah, I'm sharing a couple pictures too of what you had, and there was there was an anomaly showing up. I had a couple pictures of it showing it there. This is what Travis was getting, And then
Yep.
at the end of this, it was this one here. And this is the one that I think blew everyone's mind. And you were not expecting to get anything because there was nothing up there at that level with mass, right? So
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was just thinking of is we went back and we were looking at this other data that we've gotten. And so this spot, yeah, again, season 5 teaser, we had some really crazy stuff happen here in that exact same spot, season 5 too. So some really cool data from multiple sources again during the same experiment. So I'm sure Pete remembers our big drone experiment and that night.
Oh,
So.
yeah. And I'll really underscore that, right? It's two different sensors at two different times in the same spot that get anomalous data in the same
Mhm.
spot. What are the odds of that?
mm,
To me, they're incalculable, right? It's
Yeah.
impossible. But
And
hey,
then
impossible just happened the second time. What, a year later, Caleb? I can't remember. In between the original spike and the photogrammetry and the season 4. I mean, that was just, to this day, can anyone explain that? I can't.
probably not.
so
You're
that's
fading in. Your microphone's fading in and out just a little bit, Pete, on you there. I don't know if
Oh,
it's
sorry.
just yeah. It's we're getting some of it and then it'll fade out a little bit. But yeah, so the data, and this was on top of your photogrammetry data, where it took all those individual little pictures that were taken and it put it into this spire standing up off the ground there. And how coincidental for it to put it right there on the top of that, like it did, like I showed in that picture there. That's
Yeah.
there you
And
have two
then,
different types of technology showing you basically the same thing.
yeah.
well, and then one of the really crazy parts about that too is Pete's forgetting one of the really, I'd imagine, scary things that potentially scary is when the helicopter went through that area. Cameron reported that it got like pushed,
Buffeted.
and like
Yeah.
the helicopter's doing this, and it goes like this.
That would be a
And
No, I didn't forget. It's more like I blocked it.
yeah,
Yeah, that was scary. That
and
was damn scary.
and they don't show this, but Tom, Brian, and I were coming around on the ground, and we watched that happen.
Oh wow.
So, and that's where we were like, "What the crap just happened?" So,
Yep. So now you have a third piece of technology, an actual helicopter, a piece of machinery being affected by it as well. So, that's when I tell people, because, obviously doing the show like I do, I get people that come on and say, "Oh, it's all, they're just making stuff up out there." And I'm like, "Yeah, oh, no, no, no." Then you obviously don't watch the show, because if you did, you would not be saying that. If you really did watch the show and invest into what's really going on out there, because uh when all the different, if we talk about repeatable, but when you look at something being repeatable through different technologies, that is even more, in my mind, of validation of evidence than anything else.
oh,
um
yeah.
wow. And that's kind of a brown socks moment for Pete there, I would imagine. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. And Caleb and I even, after, what was that? Caleb and I went out, I think it was off season, right? And we tried to
Yeah.
repeat it and we couldn't.
Mhm.
So that's another data point to me that's really interesting, which, I think I've heard Brandon uses the word transient. So
Mhm.
whatever's going on, you can't just go out there, do an experiment and hope it's going to happen. It's not like that.
Mhm.
Anyway, that was why the repeatability thing is why Caleb and I went back out there and flew it again with the same gear, same settings, in the same spot. thinking, we're looking at each other while the drone's up in the air going, you imagine if we get the same spike again?
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to some of it, and that's where one of our big questions, and like one of the things that I kind of write about is, imagine experiencing something and you're lucky if you get a video or a picture or something. But then it's like, that's what's been so crazy out here is I've experienced so much stuff, and and initially I'm like, I'm never going to see that again. And then potentially years later, at this point, I do.
Yep.
And that's what's crazy to me is I know there's a lot of people out there that might have one experience, once in their life, and they will never probably see it again. And yeah, it's like, how do you like connect with someone like that and
Yep.
bring that home, And so again, like when I say like season 5 for me was extremely validating, was because of some of the stuff that happened. Was very familiar to me. So
yeah. Now I know this. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
I was thinking if Eric was here with us, he'd go, if you guys went out there and tried to repeat and get that repeatability, the fact that it didn't happen is also a data point.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, Eric's right. He's right. It's just, it can be frustrating because that's when the people who think we're all up to some BS type of thing, swarm and start circling, and it ain't that. Okay, science is a fill in the blank. It's SOP.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's weird how, and like you said, that's why you guys, and you talk about first season, second season, that you guys were learning, and you were learning ways to, as I think Travis puts it, kick the hornet's nest, to get activity to happen. And that's why, everybody's like, why do they shoot off so many rockets? Well, because it's effective at getting something to happen. So why not keep using that type of thing? And it always does. But another piece of technology, and I know this is one that Mike wanted to kind of talk about a little bit too, and it's kind of where we are heading next. And I'm going to show this picture because these were the guys that came out here with a lot of confidence. And you see the beautiful shows. If anybody goes out and looks at Sky Elements and looks at the shows that they put on, they're phenomenal. They really are. They're fantastic. But not only did they have battery drain and stuff going on, but one of Mike's points to talk about was the GPS data. And Mike, you want to elaborate on that? Go ahead.
Yeah, the GPS data, to me, that's another one of those things that it's being repeated, and skewing positions. It seems like a lot of times, whether it's GPS that is on a vehicle, or you guys are walking around with it, or it's on a drone or multiple drones, the data comes back, and a lot of times it goes underground. And you didn't go underground, but the signal shows that it went places that aren't possible. And that has happened multiple times. So you're able to repeat that. So that something is going on there. So to me, that's one of the from a science standpoint is more exciting. The helicopter has issues with GPS.
Yeah.
So that's a data point that you can start measuring and start doing some, pretty good experiments on, as long as you understand how GPS works. And so just trying not to get too scientific, but to understand how GPS works, essentially you have a GPS receiver on the ground, and to know its position, its GPS uses something called trilateration, and it's using multiple satellites to determine where its location is. And it does that with a minimum of 4 different satellites. And that gives a distance in essentially a sphere away from a single satellite. You put 4 together and you can get a pinpoint accuracy. The issue then becomes when the data tends to, it does go off in X and Y, so ground level sometimes shifts, but a lot of times it goes down. So what causes that? Well, the most accurate GPS data that you'll get are when satellites are directly above, because you don't have the signal coming through much of the atmosphere, the ionosphere. Um, as you look at satellites that are not directly above you, if you're standing on the Earth here, satellites directly above, that's going to be your best signal. If you're looking at a satellite on the horizon, you're going through a lot of the Earth's ionosphere, and that can cause interference. And what the satellites are giving is a very accurate timestamp and the satellite's position when it sent it. So as long as you know where that was, you're essentially taking the amount of time it takes for that signal to go from the satellite down to the receiver. And you need at least 4 satellites to be able to do that. So now we go back to, what is the problem? We've got GPS signals that are going underground or skewing. So a couple of that you could try to make that happen is, one, the first would be, like I said, when you have a signal straight above you, that's your most accurate signal. It's when you're only getting satellites that are off on the horizon, and that signal is going through the ionosphere. One nanosecond of delay in that signal through the ionosphere will equates to about a foot. So it doesn't take very much to be off as it travels through the ionosphere to start to send the signal off. And what do we know is sometimes above Skinwalker Ranch, there's this anomaly. Remember the trying to track the space station as it goes over.
That was another highlight.
Where did they see it? They saw it on the horizons. They didn't see it up above.
Right.
So you could get skewed data that way. That to me would make sense, but you would think it would skew all of the data. It wouldn't just skew data going mostly in Z straight down, so Z height. But the other obvious answer is essentially for the signal to take longer to get to the satellites. What it's essentially saying is that it's taking longer than you think, and instead of being here on the surface, you're down below. So it's taking longer to get there. Well, that could mean that the anomaly is slowing time down. Doesn't have to do it very much. Remember, I said 1 nanosecond is a foot. So a little bit through whatever is up above or in that range can cause a shift, and cause things to show up where we know they didn't go. The other interesting tidbit that I'm sure some of the folks that are ham radio operators and whatnot, the signal that GPS is transmitting on, it transmits on, and I'm going to read this because I don't memorize this kind of thing, 1.57542 gigahertz. That's 1.575. You round up, that's 1.6 gigahertz.
Wow.
Right?
Interesting.
That frequency should sound familiar too. So if you're getting signals on or around, because we know that it's not always dead center on 1.6.0000, whatever, it's 1.6 within, a little bit. So as that frequency pops up out of nowhere and starts transmitting, it can interfere with a GPS signal that is being transmitted very nearby in that same range. So multiple ways that can affect the GPS data. Again, to me, that's pretty impressive when you can repeat that over and over again and know that something is going on and something is affecting that. There's something in that general region and that area, whether it's right around the triangle or the east valley, the field there. something is causing that signal to be affected. And you can repeat it.
Yep. Yeah.
So you're hitting on something that we actually measured in another experiment that I want to say season 4 showed with one of the other third parties and the weather balloon that they sent up. And the
Amazon.
big piece that they said that really was the big takeaway for me was exactly what Mike is talking about, was a time anomaly that they measured. And yeah, you guys
Like
are
a quarter second. A quarter second of data, like I said, 1 nanosecond is a foot in GPS time. So how much is a quarter second? It's huge. Travis said that. That's massive.
And you guys are going to again lose your minds. This is probably going to be this is one of those things that blew our minds. Was some of the things that we found with time this last year in at least 3 of our experiments.
Wow.
And you're going to see something there that I don't know. I don't know if anybody can explain it at this point.
Wow. That's wild. And Pete, you go ahead. Sorry.
And just the amount of time that we're talking about.
Yeah. Pete, you deal, I mean, your equipment deals with GPS all the time. And so I'm sure you've run into some issue as well with it on your equipment. Have you not?
Oh,
Maybe once.
this is Pandora's box for me. I have to be careful.
Yeah, I don't want you to get in trouble with anything, so be careful.
No, it's not so much getting in trouble in that what Mike's talking about is, to me, is one of the elephants in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
Because Mike, I couldn't agree more. I've been talking about this very some time now, and you could even extrapolate it a little further, meaning the experiment we were just talking about on the helicopter. So if something that I can't see is getting a LiDAR return, right, out in the open air from the helicopter experiment, what in the world could affect essentially infrared laser light that way?
Mm-hmm.
Same answer. Same answer.
Yep.
So I'll leave it at that, because if I go down that rabbit hole, we won't get to talk about season 4 at all. But I'm to me, to your point, Jeff, based on what I do, because all of it is geospatial tech, meaning basically everything I do is tied to the ground through GPS. And as Mike has said, and anybody who watches the show has seen, that all GPS sensors, all of them, behave erratically. The GPS on your phone, all the way to the GPS on Cameron's helicopter, which, do I even have to say how terrifying that is?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Commercial aviation
Oh my gosh.
GPS isn't behaving right on his property. Again, I could go down a half a dozen rabbit holes, but kudos, Mike. I'm your Huckleberry.
Yeah, when Cameron and if you know, and for you two guys, Kaleb and Pete, for you two guys to be, you know, strapped in, hanging basically halfway out of a cockpit door or a door of a helicopter, who would you rather have at the helm than Cameron Fugel?
Nobody.
Exactly,
Nobody.
exactly. But when Cameron gets a little freaked out, which we know he did this year on a few occasions, or I say this year in season 4, we know that he did on a few occasions. I'm going to start to worry when he says, well, "I've lost GPS." Well, wait a minute, you lost what? You
Yeah.
know, and then when he talks about, you know, the fact that there's something reading, I know this wasn't season, I don't think it was season 4, but talks about that it's telling him that the ground is 40 feet below when he's 5,000 feet in the air.
Yeah.
I'm going to start freaking out a little bit. I mean, I'm glad he's at the helm, but still.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then what we were talking about a minute ago, when Kaleb was saying he watched the helicopter go from here to there,
Mm-hmm.
and we all squealed like 3-year-olds in the helicopter, I can own that. It was, but the only calm voice on the comms was Cameron. He was like,
Yep.
whoa, that was weird.
That was
Yeah.
And that, for the rest of us who are
it's calming.
having laundry issues in that moment, are that's what you want to hear. It's like, oh, okay, our pilot's cool. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, tanks and helicopters are similar in the same way as when the tank commander or the pilot starts freaking out. That's when you start going,
We're in trouble.
we're in trouble. Yeah.
Oh, there's another good example of the GPS data, and I'm glad you guys did this. This was a perfect experiment, and it was when out to the ranch comes Mr. J. Stratton, and you guys, and I don't know if you how they devised this all, came up with Travis, put this all together, but having them, take you guys went a route, you drove a route in the Jeep with Jay on there, trying to see how the ranch or the anomaly, if we want to call it that, would be affected by familiar, a familiar face or a familiar person being there. So you drove the route after you went on it with him first, and then later on without him, driving the same route, the same stops, the same period of time, everything the same. And you've got the white track was without him, the red track was with him. But the problem was when they take a deeper look at it and say, oh, wow, the Jeep went underground, several 100 feet underground, only when he was in it. Again, what? Why
Yeah,
only
and,
when he was in it,
yeah, and another part of that too is it correlated with certain places on the ranch itself that Jay had experienced things or had witnessed something.
Yep.
And when we were with Jay and as we were going through here, he was talking about those things at those points. And that's when you see that data drop. Because I want to say it's all that data that dropped out is between Homestead 2 and very near to the drill site where you're coming around the mesa and you can see it. And at the time where Jay was on the ranch, the ranch was cleared off a lot more than it is now. It's overgrown in a lot of places a little bit more now. But you can see right in the Homestead 2 where that data starts dropping off.
Yep. Yeah.
So
And he
Jeff,
talked about that anomaly. Go ahead, Mike.
Jeff, can you pull that picture back up? Because that's the one that I like the
This one?
most, because you can see very consistently the signal dropped lower and lower, or whether or not, depending which direction they were going, coming back up, which means that signal, at the further they went in that area, the further they went in, the longer the signal took to get to the GPS receiver.
Right.
So
Yep.
time was slowing down somehow, or it was taking longer to get there. The signal was taking longer to get there. What slows time down?
It's a Z value.
Right.
Elevational issue. To your point, Mike, I love this. You can see that the X and Y, your lat long, is
right
on track, but Z has gone bananas.
Yep. And so that means the signal the receiver thinks the signal has taken longer to get to it than it actually did, because we know that they're truly on the surface, but those points, and every single one goes down just a little bit further, which means it's slowly taking longer and longer for that signal to get from the satellite to the receiver. So is it going through something that's slowing it down, like the ionosphere? Or again, if it's a 1.6 gigahertz signal transmitting in its noise, you wouldn't see consistency like that. To me, it's more that it's going through something that's causing some kind of a delay.
Yep.
Like I said, it doesn't take very much delay, but it did it consistently. So to me, that is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's, we talk about going through something. And I think that, uh, it again, it goes back for me anyway, it goes back to validation that there's something happening there. So many different experiments. And that's what I love about this show. One of the main things I love about it is the fact that you guys are throwing so much different science at it. Not only do you have the science also, which is giving you this kind of data like this right here, but you also have the human aspect, because I hate to say it, even though you guys are there, Pete and Caleb and Thomas and everybody else that's out there, but you're also, I was going to say guinea pigs. No, you're test subjects as well, because the things that are happening to you as well as to the technology, in that you're seeing things, you're experiencing things and all of that. So you're also part of the data set as well. I mean, I, I, how do I say that in a nicer way? I don't know, but I mean, you're part of that data. So there,
Oh
that
yeah,
was, yeah, go ahead.
Eric says it all the time. Anytime anybody comes out to the ranch for whatever reason, you now become a part of the
Yeah.
observational science. You are now a part of what's going on out here, as far as what he's looking for or what he's trying to pay attention to. That's where anytime we have guests out here, whether that's through filming or whatnot, there's always me or Bryant around with people.
Yep.
And it's yeah, is there things that, like, you're going to see there again, there was something that happened that broad daylight, very close to us, that happened. And it's like, yeah, what the heck?
Yeah.
There was nothing that could train anybody for that situation.
Nope.
or anything. But at the same time, it's like, that's the whole reason why I'm out here, is because if something does happen, I'm used to those types of situations and have trained
Yep.
for crazy things and can make decisions quickly.
Right. Yeah.
And this is why the property is secured.
Yes. Very good point.
Okay.
Yep.
I know everybody wants to go, and I get it, but
Yep.
can you imagine the responsibility of
Oh my
handling
gosh.
it, right?
No.
I mean,
Yeah. No. Yeah. I went out there myself, and I went to the sign where it says stop, the big sign right there, and I waved at the
Yep.
camera like a nerd. But I mean, you respect that. I do. I respect that. You don't go over there unless you're invited, and that's probably not going to happen to the vast majority of people, because of the liabilities of things that very well could
Yeah.
happen out there and have happened. And so I've said that before. Just people, don't jump the fence. Stay the hell out of there. You're not, for multiple reasons on that. There's a question that was brought up here by Samantha, and it says, "Has Jay been back for the experiment to be repeated again to see what results are achieved?"
He's been back on the property, but we haven't had the time to be able to go through and do that kind of experiment again, because it took some time to do it, and we just haven't never had the time to do it again yet. So, and obviously that's one of the things that we're always looking to do, is how can we go back and revisit some of these experiments.
Right.
And that, again, that's what you see is with what the investigation during the time of filming is. You see what can we prioritize with, and budget and all sorts of different stuff factors come into play, and we try to prioritize what we can, but then you also have the other side of that, where we're going, they want something visually good for television too, so we're
Right.
always doing that balancing act, which is fine.
Right.
It's just there's a lot of things we wish we could do that we just can't get back to sometimes. So
hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
Forgive the random thought, but it's not so random. So I literally, a few minutes ago, just had an aha moment thanks to Mike. Okay. And I'll explain what that is, but if I don't get through this quickly and succinctly, it's a great example to me of the power of crowdsourcing as best as possible what's the research, the science that's going on out at the ranch. And what I mean by that is before 5 minutes ago, I did not know the GPS broadcast on 1.57.
I didn't either. Oh, your mic cut out on us.
Do I even have
Whatever it is, they don't want you to talk about it, Pete.
Yeah, because your mic's cutting out on you.
Wait, pull your microphone closer.
Skinwalker?
Yeah, pull it closer and see if that helps. Oh, he's going.
Skinwalker. Wow. Sorry if you can't hear me.
That's good.
That's better.
That is that's significant for a lot of reasons. I don't have to say anything else, but that wouldn't have entered my nut if Mike hadn't just said it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's a perfect example of like, again, why I feel so, I don't know, like motivated to try and like write the things that I've been going through or have experienced these last 5 years, because like great example of this, just like what Pete is, like what Pete just experienced right now. Eric went through and put all the videos and all these photographs and all this stuff from the last 7 years and into a big database on a couple drives. Put the date, put the year, put everything. So he can go in and find exactly what we're talking about. And the amount of things that we went, oh, wait, that all happened in the same week.
Oh, wow.
And started connecting some of those dots. That's what's so crazy is sometimes we get these answers years later. Like a great example is, sorry, kind of a side tangent.
No, go ahead.
And this comes back to what you just showed there at the beginning of the podcast with the spire that Pete caught. Is Tom was doing some work on the ranch and laid this massive line out to one of the observation posts, what we call the black box now, where it has all this equipment and all this stuff. And Tom laid this line out, and nothing like that had been on the ranch yet, to our knowledge. So this was a first time for the ranch, and that's one of the things we talk about the ranch being is a novelty detector. So anything that one-off that could happen, it's going to happen out here, is what we've gotten used to.
Yep.
And then the next day, I'm going to kind of tell on Tom here. Tom, it was springtime, and we were getting ready. Like Pete was coming out to do that scan, where you see that photogrammetry spire anomaly is, and that's what kind of spoiled it. But Tom accidentally set the ranch on fire, and it burned up a little bit of the east field.
Oh, wow.
And I remember because I was a deputy, a full-time deputy at that time, and I saw the call screen pop up. And I started laughing because I was like, of course, Tom set the ranch on fire. And I took a picture of my call screen and all that stuff. I don't know if I still have that photo or not. But
Yeah, that's funny.
And then the next day, or within the next couple days, Pete came out. And Pete, that's when Pete lost a couple drones. And I'm not talking the little drones. I'm talking some big drones. In fact, I think one of the wings is up on the ground.
The one that doesn't ever crash. Okay.
Yeah, one of those ones, I think. So
now he tells me,
right? So, and Eric brought that up to me because he was like, "Wait a minute, all these things happen within like a week."
Wow.
And so it was like,
wow.
This comes back to like this conversation of, is the ranch like responding to different people or responding to different situations because of novelty things happening? And so it was like, that was one of the, again, that was something that Eric pointed out to me just a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Wow.
Because all that stuff happens, and then a week after that, when I actually finally got out here onto the ranch, Eric is showing me the spire anomaly in the data, and that prompts me to go, Eric, I can't not sit on this anymore. I saw something cloaked above the Mesa in that exact same spot, essentially. and I saw that like a year before, a couple months before that.
Yep. Wow.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, and that's the amount of that stuff that's happened out here. And as I've gone through and written this stuff out, I don't know what that points to or what that could mean in the long run, but I just feel like that can help Eric or whoever it is that at some point comes back and starts putting a bunch of these pieces together and goes, "Holy crap!"
That makes it makes a huge sense right there too, because when you look at it in the time frame like that, that's you can really start to tie that together. I can't wait for this book to come out of your notes. This is going to be great. I think. Well, you've already probably sold about I don't know, several thousand copies of it already, and you haven't even finished it yet. But
Yeah, I should probably put up like a pre-buy thing just so I can
to help fund it now. Yeah, I tell you what, you get a
Right.
lot of people involved in it, because that's exactly a very good point. You look at it in Eric, he's talked about this before, the terabytes of data that he
Yeah.
has. That's great. And fantastic that he has all that. But also, like you've just said, tying that into when you put those things together over years, somebody mentioned in the chat here, getting answers years later makes sense. When you put that all together like that, and Pete was like, "Hey, wait a minute, he owes me for a drone."
right? And he just had that moment again. So
And so yeah, so that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. There was another little piece, talking about Pete and his technology. Pete, when you were out there I think this was during when the drones were there from Sky Elements, and you had this little bad boy going out there, and then you've got that scan that you did where
Yeah.
part of the Mesa is missing.
Oh,
And yeah. It's almost like the ranch decided, I'm going to mess with these guys a little bit, and took part of your data and just threw it way out miles away from where it belongs. I mean, I know we talked about this once before on the show, but what the heck? I mean,
what the something.
yeah.
you can't get Pete to say his most famous line out here.
Oh, well, it's a family
This
show.
might be a family show. I don't know.
Yeah.
That you just keep bringing it, don't you think?
That's my job.
No, it's that was another same stuff, different day, right? That
Yeah.
was what in the blank am I looking at? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yep.
How could there
Yeah.
possibly be a gap in the data? The
Right.
only way there could be a gap in the data would be if something is blocking the laser from
Yes.
getting, in this case, to the Mesa.
Right.
Was there anything blocking the laser? No. Well, let's make it weirder. Well, what would get returns like you're looking at there out beyond the range of the scanner? I mean, it's a double whammy that
Yeah.
is just, and you see me reacting physically to this.
Mhm.
It's still a total mystery, but what it has in common with what we were talking about a while ago about the helicopter experiment, same technologies, LiDAR,
Mhm.
it's an infrared laser beam. Okay. Now, Travis and Eric know far more about the physics of it than I do. But what could do that? Hey, there's nothing there where there should be something there,
Mhm.
and there's something there beyond the range of the scanner. To me, and I don't think I've mentioned this before, is that that particular scanner is known as the time of flight scanner.
Oh.
The time that the laser fires to go out and hit something with mass, and the time for that return to come back.
There
All
we
at the
are with
speed of
time.
light, super, super fast. But you know what the key word there is.
Time.
Yeah.
I refer to this as my white whale. There's Moby Dick again, and that's why I react the way I do. It's just, it's a family show, so it's the reason I don't have any hair. It's the reason I keep coming back. As long as Kaleb and the guys say, "Hey, will you come back?" It's like, oh yeah, because after this much time and this much just bizarre data in terms of experiments I've been involved with, it's like, yeah, I'd really like to achieve even just a little more understanding of this.
Mhm.
That would be good.
Absolutely. Well, like you've invested so much time and equipment into this endeavor, just like Kaleb and honestly, all of us that watch the show, we want to know.
Mhm.
I mean, we want to know. We want some answers from this. We want to know what is going on, and we live this through your experiments and through your eyes to tell us to try to figure this out. There's a million or a couple million uh, couch coaches here that are saying, "Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that." Or we have no idea. Honestly, we have no idea. But you guys are doing the best you can to come up with experiments, especially Professor Bard and Dr. Taylor coming up with this stuff, and you, Kaleb, also, and Pete. You're all part of it, but you guys are doing the best you can with the technology you have to try to figure this out. And I can understand that passion you have, Pete. You're going to want to keep going back out there as long as they'll let you, because I'm sure you're like us. You want answers to this.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
To solve this mystery. There's another gentleman that again had some issues out at the ranch, and Kaleb worked with him, and so did Thomas and everything. And that's
Yeah.
Jan. Jan was out there, of course, with and he makes these things. If there's a GPR expert, it's this guy right here, from what you all have said, and of course, and Eric and everything. And then you get the look on his face like this, when it's not working the way it's designed. Um, and I hate to say that Thomas spent an awful lot of hot hours climbing all over that mesa to get some
Yes, he
data
did.
that was basically useless.
Yeah.
I hate that for him to have done that. But at least the data that you, Kaleb, were dragging around behind you, and again, this is a unit that Jan created that you dragged around on the Mesa, did produce this.
Yeah.
And I remember the look on everyone's faces in the command center when this was revealed. You'd look on Travis and Eric's faces, when you, and all of you, when you saw this data. And then you've made, at least up to season 4, you've made several attempts to try to drill. And by the way, is Joe still up there? Is he still up there drilling?
Now, I finally told him he could come down.
Oh, okay. All right. Good. Yeah.
I gave him his pack of crayons and so he was happy. So.
You tried drilling under the road into the Mesa, and you got befuddled with that. You tried clearing out a spot with the crane that didn't want to work initially, and you finally had to restart the whole program on that thing to get the crane to work. Again, failure of equipment and technology.
Yeah.
And then he moved a bunch of boulders, and then you had the drill going in there. That didn't work. And then you had the other drill on top of the Mesa drilling down, and that didn't work. And I know you can't answer the question about season 5, but what the heck is in that Mesa that is?
Yeah. So I can tell you, we definitely tried to find out and get more information, and you're going to see some pretty interesting stuff in regards to our drilling of what we did last year and what we were able to accomplish. And I'll tell you, it turned into one of the longer things that just kept, the look on these drillers' faces and their determination and stuff, and how they started taking it personally, it's funny in a way looking back, but it's definitely something you guys are going to enjoy seeing, and some of the results that we got. And Jan comes back out, and
Oh, good.
One of the things I was going to say too is at first I thought Jan was like one of Pete's friends when they first came out. Like I thought Pete was bringing him out, and I was like, oh, Pete's like told him, and so I thought they were like friends or something at first, but no. So, but I just thought that was funny. But yeah, because they had him out at the same time, and Pete was telling Jan, like, dude, like this stuff's, did you make sure you actually checked all your stuff? And Jan really had that attitude of, oh yeah, whatever. This is like nothing. I'm going to be able to showcase all my stuff nationally, and Jan's very, very intelligent. Very good guy. We enjoy having him out here. Anytime we can get him out here, we enjoy it. The results that he's brought us, and you're hitting it right on the head with him. Is he's created a bunch of his own equipment and his understanding of how it works and just the field in general, and how the wavelengths work and the type of information you should be getting. And that, like, we couldn't have a better expert out here. And then on top of that, with the stuff that happens with his equipment, and then the results that he's still able to get because we're going out and dragging those radars on the ground for so long. And you're going to see some really some pretty cool stuff in regards to his information that he brings to us. So it's going to be really exciting for everybody to see that. So yeah.
That's fantastic. I know that's and it leaves us all wondering. They did show there is a teaser trailer out there right now for season 5, and it does show Dragon with some jelly substance in his hand that came out of the Mesa. There is that. We don't know what it is yet, and I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to put you in that position. So we do know that there's some drilling going on, and something came out of that Mesa. Something else, I'll say, because you also had those little pieces of thin metal that came out that was, materials that would be used on the space shuttle. So
yeah, in regards to that, what they're showing you in his hand, it's definitely gonna answer, or it's gonna raise some really good questions, I would hope, as to what is going on in there. But it is like the state of the material in regards to the information that's going to be connected to it is really going to be interesting. Like, I am excited for that conversation when that comes up. And
awesome.
I don't think some people are probably going to be a little disappointed in what the answer is, I'm sure. But there's still a lot we don't know. And so we're still trying to figure out how to get more information in regards to what we've done. But we did make some pretty good, I think, headway in that regard of drilling itself.
Good deal.
So yeah, and then again, some of the surrounding stuff that happened when we were drilling is really gonna.
Wow.
Yeah, so
awesome.
It just adds to it. So
yeah. And that's the thing, too. And I'm glad you brought that up, and people are bringing out their technology for the world to see. That's another one of these things that you get people that, and I get the direct messages too, just like I'm sure you guys do, where they're going, oh, well, they planned that failure into their equipment when they came out there. And I'm like, do you really think that somebody wants to showcase their equipment on national television in front of millions of people, and they want it to fail?
So
I don't think so.
Yeah, let me put it this way: in regards to, say, drilling, who knows how expensive it is to have someone come out and drill a well for you?
Mm-hmm.
Just a well, like trying to get water.
Yep.
How expensive is that?
Yep. I
can tell you, when it comes to the filming side of things, they're pretty penny pinching when it comes to stuff. We have a budget for a reason, and we got to stick to it, right? But on these drillers' side, you know how much money you can make drilling in the oil field out here?
I really don't know, but I can imagine
A
it's
lot, like millions and millions and millions of dollars. Like these big drills that they have, like they're not cheap.
Mhm.
And so when they say they can come out and do a job in so many days, and they have things happen that pushes them out,
Yeah.
It's a lot of
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
like,
Time
that's
is
a
money.
lot of money.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so on top of that is no, they don't want to look like idiots on television by
Nope.
any means. But their like if something happens to a driller's schedule, like out here, I'd imagine most of them, some of them are restricted by weather in certain jobs
Yeah.
because you just can't get to where they're supposed to go. So they're trying to cram in as many of those jobs as they can between, say, February and like November.
Mhm.
Not saying they can't go drill in other places, but if there's more profitable places that they could go and be, they want to get there. Like, so in regards to like drillers, like if there's issues with their drills and stuff and they're going, what the crap? They're starting to go, crap, what's this going to do to our schedule 2 weeks down the road?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, and it's
Yeah,
not just like
and
drillers, you know.
insert that same argument to any third party expert that's coming in front of
Yep.
me. Any one of them. Would y'all do that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, like Pete himself.
Pete,
There's
even
been
you,
times
yeah.
where we're like,
Would
yeah,
I
we
do
want,
that?
No.
This is what I
right?
do for a living.
Yeah.
Do I want pot under my face? I never worked with that.
Mm. Yeah. No, I agree. It's not something that people are going to want to go through having failures like that on national television. And you said even not only the being seen by millions of people, but also like you just said, the money involved and the time involved and everything else, and the equipment that may be damaged, drones crashing and things like that. I mean, that's not something that people want to tell you. I think Mike still had a
Yeah.
point about the drilling that he wanted to bring
Yeah.
up.
The two things that were important in my mind about the drilling, the horizontal drill to begin with. This got mentioned briefly on the show, but I think you guys talked more about it afterwards. Um, when when he was drilling for like 30 minutes straight, putting 8,000 pounds of pressure uh, over that period of time, the bit cooled. That's
That's
significant. That's
that was
huge.
one of the coolest things we saw.
Yeah.
They didn't make a big deal out of that on the show, but if you understand how that thing works, when it's if it's got 8,000 pounds of pressure, and you saw what the drill bit looked like, it's a paddle bit, and it's not, as it comes to a point, and 8,000 pounds of pressure on a small point like that, no damage,
No damage, right?
and
About the
it
size of your pinky.
right,
Yeah.
That
right,
that was the
very,
point.
very, very, very focused, very high pounds per square inch, then, because it's a tiny little point,
Mhm.
and it cooled. That the only way that can happen is if there's zero friction. And
Exactly.
the friction is what heats it up.
Right.
And it's hitting something that's so hard it can't chew into it, and it's got the hardest substance you can put on a drill bit. Can't make a dent in it. Doesn't chip any of the teeth either, and doesn't generate heat. That's
Yeah.
hugely important
Absolutely.
as to what is in there. Like I said, it means essentially if there's no heat and it started to cool, then whatever it was hitting was frictionless
Yep.
or near frictionless.
Yep.
Um, that that was just absolutely crazy. And then um, the transmitter on the end, they were
Yes.
tracking that to see where it was, and that's how they locate it. And up on top, um, when they said, "Hey, we're getting that weird signal," they were down. I think Travis was watching the signal, so we're getting a weird signal now. There's some extra noise and
Harmonics on it. Yeah.
yeah, harmonics. And then when they backed the pressure off, it went away, and I started screaming at the screen, "Do it again! Do it again! Do it again!" And
Yeah.
sure enough, Eric Bard to the rescue, of course. And he's
Yep.
like, let's try something here. Let's
Mhm.
try doing that again. And so they pressed, the comb signal came back. They pulled back, the comb signal goes away, press, it comes back. So you had complete control over those extra harmonics.
Oh, and the driller, the amount of information that they get from their drill bit head, they get a lot of information from that.
Yeah.
So-
Maybe not super sexy TV stuff, but from a data standpoint, that's impressive.
Yeah, and like I was gonna show something. It's not as high tech as what you guys are showing, but to kind of give you guys a really good idea of what's been happening the last couple of years is the first time we had Aaron come out, and when we got that those pieces of metal off the drill, and now I'm thinking I messed up, but on our first drilling exercise that we did when we came straight in, or what we were trying to do is, the idea was the canal, we were coming in from past the canal that's right there in front of the mesa there, and the idea was we would come in and try and push up into the mesa and see if we hit anything, or see what was there, or because we were actually looking for like captains, if I remember right. But we were coming in, and what happened is it actually pushed that drill bit down.
Wow. Yep.
And that's how we got those metal fragments, was that drill bit came in and Aaron tried to turn it up and start coming up the mesa there, but it hit whatever we thought was this bowl shape, and it sat there and like scraped along the bottom of it, and it kept trying to go up, and it just sat there and like scraped itself along there. And that's how we got this idea of that there's some kind of bowl shaped object there. And then the next year we were like, well, we got to get closer to the mesa, and that's when we come in. And the idea was to go down and hit whatever this object was. And that time it pushed the drill bit up and over. And so that's when you hear us talking about like this disc shaped thing, that's basically how we figured it out. And then that third time, like what you're talking about was, we were like, all right, Aaron, let's just see if we can punch through. And what you're referencing is when that drill bit came in and we went straight at it, that drill bit hit whatever it was and spun on it for 30 minutes. And again, no friction, no heat increase. It actually got cooler. So that was essentially what you see in those first couple drilling exercises. Is that's what happened.
Yeah, and that doesn't make any sense at all. And to Mike's point, talking about the friction, and he pushed on it, and it didn't heat up, it didn't damage it in any way. You pull it back, everything's fine, and you're just left befuddled, going, "What the heck? What was that all about? Why did that not work?"
And I just had the idea because I know some people, even years now, like are still having a hard visualization of what we were really doing, and that I'm sure I might have gotten some information a little bit mixed up, but those were essentially the three big things that happened with it, and how we got the information of what potentially this looked like, or so.
Yeah, and I remember that Joe was up there when he was up on top working that drill. He only got down about 20 feet, which was basically, wasn't that where Jan said that anomaly started, was about 20 feet?
Yeah, and that's the other part, is the information from Jan's, that the data that we got from Jan combined with what the information that we have from these drillers gave us the idea of potentially how big, how tall all this is, or whatever's in there.
Right. Yep.
So, and you're going to see.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know a lot of people have come on and said, well, why don't they just blow it up, or why don't they dig it out, or why don't they do, it's like, no. Come on. First of all, Brandon does not want to damage the mesa. He doesn't want to go to that extreme. But also, if you go through all of that, are you not going to then possibly damage what it is you're trying to seek in the first place? So, I mean, it has to be done very, okay, I'm going to use the word surgically. It has to be done very surgically to find out what's in there. So, but yeah.
Responsibly.
There you go. Thank you. That's a very good point.
I was thinking like biopsy, like we're trying to be like you're saying, like a very surgical. We're trying to do as minimal as damage as we can.
Yep.
Whenever we can. Because
Okay.
again, like if there's something there and we go in and destroy it, how does that help anybody at the end of the day?
Right. Yep. Exactly. So yeah, that's we'll see. I'm really interested to see on that one. That's another one of the highlights from season 4 that I can't wait to see progress into season 5 and find out what if you've able to capture anything else. Now we see that little jelly substance, so we'll find out now. I mean, strange metal and everything else, and now this jelly substance. Oh boy, here we go. So that's going to be exciting to see. So pushing on here just a little bit too is another one of my big highlights of season 4 was this bad boy right here.
Oh yeah.
And I when this all happened, I mean, I was one of those people that was glued to my television, trying to figure out what in the world was going on here. I do have a little video, and this is something I showed on the podcast when we actually reviewed this the first time, and it shows the actual. I had to break it up into little bits and pieces so I don't get in trouble with the History Channel and Prometheus. But this was the UAP that was seen during that same time frame. It that was flying by up in the sky. There's a
Yep.
couple shots of it going, then you'll see it go into the trees. But then it was the rocket taking off. And yeah, here's another shot of it here. And as it continues across the sky and then disappears, and you hear him saying, it's still going. So that was
Yep.
really interesting. And that's the other thing too, is the number of UAPs that have been seen on the ranch is just mind blowing. Yeah, there it goes. And that was Eric showing that it wasn't even showing up on his ADSB at all.
Yep.
But it was this one here. I think this is the one that's showing the actual rocket being launched. Yeah, here it is here. And as it gets closer, the anomaly illuminates, and then that thing explodes right about 31 feet. When it gets right to the anomaly, the engine explodes on it. And this was really cool, but you see it actually get brighter as it's getting closer. Um, and again, I mentioned this earlier, talking about the number of experiments, all basically showing the same thing, that there's something going on in that spot. And this is just another example of something happening there. And here's that. Yeah, this was at the end there. Was showing that UAP that just simply zoop, disappears on a clear sky. It just disappears. Um, I, I don't know. Are we going to see? I'm assuming that more experiments are taking place over there. So hopefully we'll get to see that expanded upon a little
Oh yeah. So
bit.
yeah, the blob is. I can tell you, there's going to be some really good information in regards to that. And I definitely, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
And I know
and it
you can't
shows,
go into that in detail. I know, I understand. But
yeah, and when it comes to the blob, and the information that you're going to see, it's going to show you how much work, say, like Eric puts in off season, in trying to verify and get more data as much as we can in regards to some of these big experiments. And so
Yep.
it's going to be one of the really cool things that you see, I think, to show you just how much work on the backside is done, especially Eric. So
interested in that.
yeah, the blob, I think, was one of the cooler things we've seen out here, though, in regards to the surrounding experiments, or the surrounding circumstances, and all the information that we got, and then the results that we got immediately. So, like, I want to say we did 3 rocket launches that night. The first one went fine, from what I remember correctly, and then we saw that UAP. I want to say that UAP that you just showed. I can't remember if it was between rockets 2 and 3 or between rockets 1 and 2. But it was I know it was connected to number 2 somehow.
Yeah.
And then we launched number 3, and then yeah, you saw what we caught real time, and seeing that because I helped Burdette set those cameras up, and I was back a little bit further from Tom and Travis. They were a lot closer to the rocket launch, actually launching it and all that. And I was kind of helping Burdette on that side and helping set the high-speed cameras up, and once it launched, because I wanted to make sure we were catching the rocket and trying to get as much of what we were really, the camera view that we really wanted. And so
that's
one of the rockets, that last one exploded right in that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happened was it was going, and it right where it blows up is at that 30 feet. And right where you see like the blob start. And so it's like think about rockets, and again, why we use them. So one, they're a delivery system that you can put a lot of cheap equipment in, but get a lot of data, right? And they're again cheap. We can shoot a lot of them. And then what else is it? Well, it's a kinetic energy. It's kinetic energy also. Like think of all the different types of energy that we're dealing with out here. Like Pete's LiDAR, anything shooting a beam like that's some kind of energy going somewhere. So a rocket is kinetic energy.
Yep, absolutely.
And what does kinetic energy do to potential stuff going on out here, right? It's another form of energy that we can maybe measure.
Right.
And so when that rocket goes up and hits, or it's kind of hard not to say it hits something there, but the engine deflagrates essentially from the inside out and blows out the side of the rocket. A lot of what we've seen with the rockets, if they do have some kind of malfunction, sometimes is it comes out the bottom, right? But this blew the side of the rocket out, and I want to say we found it. So it's somewhere out here. One of us has it, I think, but you can see where it blew up.
Yeah, right there.
But that doesn't happen.
No,
and yet we've seen it happen multiple times. The big rocket blew up.
Yeah.
And then this one, I mean, that's one of those things where I think Travis said on this one, he's shot thousands and thousands of rockets with that same engine. It's never failed that way. Never.
Yeah, it's always like out the bottom or maybe out the top or something, like from what I've understood. And that's the thing is like yes, I still have it. But we've shot hundreds of rockets out here at this point. And that's the only time I've ever seen that. That's where I'm sure there's other people out there that have way more experience in shooting way more rockets than I do. But from conversations that I've had, people like the engine blowing out the side like that, destroying the rocket that way, doesn't happen.
All right. Yep. And the other point too of that night, besides the blob, which I thought was fantastic, you heard Travis say, and again, we don't know the timing because we're watching the edited version that Prometheus gives us, but you hear him say, guys, we may have just seen the anomaly for the very first time. And then right after that happens, moments later, it seemed moments to us, that helo shows up and it flies around over there, and it goes in such a way that it goes what they appeared on the ground to go behind the anomaly, and it's gone. It disappears. It's lights. They can hear it. They can hear it, but they cannot see the lights anymore until it gets clears on the other side of that anomaly where that blob was, and all of a sudden there it is again.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that just for a moment? You were on the ground, you saw that happening, right? I mean, that's crazy.
So my initial thought was that the helicopter killed its lights.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And from the sound of it, I knew it was military. And I want to say there's on any military vehicle, there's a lot of kill switches for lights.
Yep.
Because there's environments where you don't want people to see your lights, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Comes in handy.
Yeah, very handy at times. And so that's what my initial thought was, like, why would they kill their lights? But then but yeah, so we launched this rocket, and I go over to Burdett, and we start looking at the camera footage and the recording there, and we start working through it. And then Tom and Travis ran over and got the actual rocket itself, because it was still on fire in the middle of the field when it launched.
Yeah, I'd be afraid to pick
Right.
it up.
Yeah. And so they bring it over, and they're going, this is crazy. We've never seen one do this. And then that's when I'm like, you guys need to come see this, because that's when we start seeing this blob, or the blob, or whatever it is. And we, obviously we're getting really excited. This is some of the most amazing data we've caught live at that point. And then we start hearing the helicopter, and we're going, what the heck? What is that? But it was like, it was so quiet because of the way where we were at with the Mesa. It literally like came right over we barely heard it before we saw it.
Wow.
Because of the way the Mesa was and how the sound carried and all that. And like we heard it, and then it got really loud because of how close it was. And it was like literally almost on top of us. And that's where it gets cool. And what you're talking about is, as we're sitting here and we like look up, and that helicopter's coming straight over us, that's when it banks, and that's when everything, and where it just disappears. And you see that in the show.
Yeah.
The camera guy,
Yeah.
Johnny on the spot, goes over, swings over, and you see that helicopter with the lights going, and then it turns.
Yep.
And it just disappears, and then it comes back.
Yep.
And that's where initially, that's when it turned and banked and it just disappeared, is when I thought they went, oh crap, and they hit their kill switch on their lights. But then it comes right back within like a couple seconds, and that's where I was like, okay, that's weird.
Now, didn't Eric have that on camera with the lights on the whole time? He saw the lights on. He never saw the lights go out, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's raising that question, is where that camera was, where Eric's watching this live, and then he starts tracking it, because it turned and headed straight east over towards the command center here, and actually came back around and hovered over here to the southeast of where I am right now, behind where some of these cottonwoods are. And it was there for a couple seconds, and then it went down south past where our south tower is and hovered there. And that's where we watched it. And it had some dwell time there. And that's where we could tell when it turned. And the way it was positioned, like it was either the back of it or the side of it, and you could kind of see inside of it.
Oh wow.
And maybe like there was somebody sitting there, and that was like the night that we just felt like they were pointing something at us.
Yep. Oh wow. Yep.
And it was just one of those things, like one of those thoughts, like, oh man, I don't have if this isn't military or whoever this is, I don't have anything that can deal with that.
No, you're sitting ducks. Yeah.
Right. And Travis and I looked at each other like, dude, do we all need to get behind, like in the canal bank or something, or get behind these big rocks on the Mesa or something?
Yep.
And the entire time it wasn't transponding.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And we did go back, and we were able to find their flight path, and showed where they came and where they went. And when we inquired about it, even if they gave us like a generic, well, it was a training mission, and they weren't supposed to go there, because we had a NOTA to airmen, right?
Just gonna say.
Yeah, like people, they weren't supposed to come within so many feet, thousands of feet. We're shooting these rockets.
Right.
But, and then on top of that too, is when you're flying at night, you have to have night vision.
Oh, right.
And the only people that I know that have night vision out here is our Lifelight, and the different companies that run that out here. And I think there's like 2 of them. But the basin itself, it's Lifelight, and then you have another company, and they're out in Salt Lake, and they'll come out if they can, or if Lifelight's not able to handle what's going on out here, or Lifelight's down over it. Or if the police can request some helicopter from out in the Wasatch Front to come out that has that capability also. and then Cameron. He's like one of the only helicopter civilian pilots that's qualified with night vision to fly in the state of Utah that he's aware of.
Yep.
And so, flying at nights, pilots have to have their night vision.
Yeah.
So, and you see that with Cameron in the show, and he's talked about that in other places where Cameron's going, like, we actively try, if we're going to have Cameron as a part of an experiment, we try to get him out of here before it gets dark, so he doesn't have to use his night vision.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
And so there's times where we're pushing it, trying to do that so we can get him out, but then, so.
Yeah.
But so those things, like, again, and I know what lifelike sounds like. I've called it in on things before. And in fact, it flew over the ranch earlier today.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
Makes me think about if you sort of, I don't know, in my head, I'm in sort of like a courtroom environment. And if you stack up, look, there's a NOTAM. There has to be a NOTAM every time rockets fly at the ranch. It's a federal law. You have to do it.
Right.
Notice to airmen. It's called a NOTAM. There will be rockets in the air, so stay out of this airspace. So a NOTAM was violated, and whoever violated was not transmitting on the ADSB.
Right. Right.
That pretty much only points to one
Yes.
possibility.
And that's the thing too, is like, think about if anybody's ever used night vision. You know how bright a rocket's going to be. How dangerous
gosh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's going to blind you for a couple seconds. And I'd imagine if you're flying, you don't want to be blinded.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
It's just like me in the tank. I don't want my sights to get knocked out because then I can't see crap.
Right. Exactly. You can't see what you're shooting at or where. Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
And then like another part of that, and this is kind of one of those things where we talk like this is what's fun about these is we get to give that little bit of information. I don't know if they showed this, but yeah, they want to show this because one of our cast or one of the production crew, he's got a drone too, and he
Hey,
wow. Does he do this all the time? Does he serve you with all this food all the time?
Yeah, where's mine? Where's mine?
Of course, remember, I gotta head out to the South Tower.
okay, there.
Oh, garçon.
Garcon, yeah.
Yeah,
He bring you some wine with that? I mean, come on.
right. He spoils me.
Awesome.
But this production member.
Speaking
He
of hot
has-
dogs, what time is it?
Right. I'm waiting for the music to start, right? But this crew member, he's got one of the ADSB apps on his phone, and he pulled it up and was seeing if the helicopter would come up at any time, and it never did until it turned and left and flew back out towards Salt Lake City. And for a brief moment, it kicked back on.
Oh, wow.
It was so fast that Eric didn't even catch it because he was preoccupied with the cameras. But that crewman, he saw it on his, and he was like, "Hey guys, it just came up." And the moment we started talking about it, it shut off again.
Yeah. Wow. See, there you guys are being surveilled. There's no doubt about it. They're watching what you're doing. And I know, I don't know if they're picking up the microphones that you guys are wearing or what it is, the production microphones or whatever it is, but they're listening to you guys because as soon as Eric said that, I'm sorry, as soon as Travis had said that, here they come. And it's just, that's not a coincidence. There are no coincidences like that. That's not a coincidence.
Yeah. And so
that's got
we get questions about like the military craft all the time. And I'm like, that one was definitely like, there was something else going on, I think, myself, past presenting, the argument or showing, just telling the story and letting people come up with their own conclusions, that is the one that I got the feeling that, yeah, there's a little bit more going on here. But a lot of these other flights that we see, I do think it's just guys are fans of the show and they're having fun.
Yeah, they want to check it out. Like the guys who were sitting in the back of the Chinook when it flew over.
Yeah.
You know, that I think was.
Yeah, and we know. Oh, go ahead, Pete. Sorry.
Sorry, this touches on, I think we talked about this before, Jeff, maybe not. This touches on the whole filing a NOTAM. So NOTAMs are public.
Yes. Yep.
So anyone in the aviation industry would know, ooh, there's a NOTAM around Skinwalker Ranch. You know, let's fire up the bird and go snoop and poop, right?
Yep.
So there's that.
Yep. Absolutely.
There is. Yeah. Or there, and I agree 100%. And it's also, they don't have to be sneaky when we're putting things out like that. They know when we're going to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
If they're paying attention and they're like, oh, they're going to try and do something, now would be a perfect time. And that time of day would be a perfect time for us to go and actually do this if we need to.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, B. Jones. That's very nice of you. Really, really nice of you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm glad to be back talking about Skinwalker Ranch too. I tell you, I cannot wait for the season to get started. I am so excited, like a kid in a candy store, honestly. But you know, and that, you know, getting back to that though, that has to make you a little unnerved, you know, to know that that's happening. But now that you do know, what can you do to you know, keep, you know, keep them out? I don't know if there's anything that can be done. Block them or some way. I don't know.
At the end of the day, probably one of the biggest protections is being public, being on people's radar and people watching us and us being active. That's and people on social media like following us and engaging with us and us engaging back and trying to get and the more eyes we get, in a way, that's I guess that's one of the biggest forms of protection we can get, because not that it might mean a whole lot anymore at this point, but
good deal.
And that's kind of why we're going. We need to be public. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you are, really, truly. A couple more things I want to get to before we wrap this up tonight. And yeah, Mike reminded me of one that you were involved in. It was in season 4, was the tossing out of the medicine balls. And that was where I led to right at the very beginning when we got started talking about Pete hanging out of the helicopter on straps. And then you were hanging out of the helicopter on straps, dropping these medicine balls.
Yeah. Pete was a little bit safer. He had a little bit better setup than I did. I just had to.
Oh, wow.
So I wasn't as brave as Pete.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you lost one. Yeah. You want to talk about that briefly while I set up the next one? Yeah, go ahead.
So the idea has been floated around, and other people have come up with these ideas of what can we put in the airspace above the triangle, right? And see if we can measure some kind of difference in fall rate or whatnot, because again, we've launched all these rockets, and a lot of times you see these rockets coming straight up and then they do this.
Yeah.
Right. Or they do this. Right. So the idea was, hey, let's take these medicine balls and go throw them out and see and take these high-speed cameras out and see if we can measure any kind of difference in their fall rate, or hey, you know, maybe we might get lucky and we'll hit something in the bounce, right? So we dropped it at a couple different elevations. I want to say 100 feet, and then 500 feet. And then we went up to 5,000 feet and dropped them to see if we could get anything at that height. And that one made me a little bit nervous, but
I bet.
Yeah, I was like, man, if I hit something with this is not going to be a good day. So,
yeah, definitely.
But this is where it gets cool, because there was some other stuff around that too. And I'm one that likes my pictures too. So to give you guys an idea of what happened. So we're coming in and we're going east to west, and we're at that 5,000 feet mark, and radios weren't that good. And we told them at this point, like, everybody get out of the area, and they're coming. And so we just hoped that everybody was out of the way at this point. And I was looking straight down, and trying to line everything up and gauge it as best as I could. And I got 4 of them out because right as we're coming in to do the drop, this storm comes out of nowhere.
Wow.
And starts hitting the helicopter and starts raining pretty good and stuff. And like 20 minutes before, it was clear sky everywhere kind of thing. So the storm came out of nowhere, which was nuts. And Cameron was like, if we're going to do it, we do it now. I was like, okay, let's do it. And we kind of put it out there. Hey, we're dropping them. Hopefully you're all out of the way. And I got 4 of them out. And we had labeled them. And this batch was 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I tried to prep myself and had them all lined up the right way. So, because we had a GoPro off the side of the helicopter looking straight down. And the idea was I'd hold it out and you can see the number as I dropped it. Mm-hmm. And I know I mixed up 2 of them. And so the numbering wasn't right because it got mixed around. But I got the 4 out, and I remember looking out, which at 5,000 feet, that was pretty brave. Like I do not like looking out of a helicopter like that at 5,000 feet.
Yeah.
And I could see all 4 of them going down in what looked like a straight line. But obviously they're like in different positions, but it felt like we were bombing something in World War II, right?
Yeah.
Is what we were, a lot of references were there. And I just remember seeing those 4 go down, and no one saw them come down because everybody was getting out of the storm and all that stuff. And we come back the next day, and they were like, hey, let's go see if we can find them. And I was like, okay, before we waste time, we had a camera system up on top of the mesa right above the triangle. I was like, I'm going to jump on there and see if I can find them.
Where they landed, yeah.
And where that camera was, you're going to love my drawing here. Again, is let me see where I can get right there. So this was where the triangle was and where we were filming, and we dropped some of the other medicine balls at that point at lower elevations in there. And this is where a lot of the high-speed cameras were set up. And then this is where the canal is, and right where the canal is, and the mesa, and the point of the mesa right in front of the triangle is about right here. And we had this camera system on top of the mesa about right here. And I get on that system, and there's like this little like saddle on the west side of this mesa here, and I could see down into this little area that we have, and that's where I found one of these medicine balls, or the first one. And essentially, the 4 that we dropped, we come back, and I was able to see this one off the edge of the mesa. So, and this is kind of like, it's about the same level as the triangle. You're actually going to see this area a little bit more in an upcoming season. But we found this one, which was the first one I dropped. And then we found the second one, and it was right where you would expect it. And then this one, we could see it. And we go walking over to it, and looking at the numbers, you could see that number 1, number 2, and number 4 were the balls that we found. Number 3 is missing. We still never found it. We don't know where it's at. And so,
wow.
Where'd it go? And we have walked all over this place. I have gone through this area, and if 1, 2, and 4 are in this straight line, number 3 should be where?
It's in Ireland in somebody's backyard. It went through the wormhole.
Right.
And it showed up as, that's what Angie was up here saying. Just it went through a wormhole and ends up in our public men's restroom at the library.
Yeah, our joke is the opposite side of the wormhole is in some alien's old man's living room, and this alien has rockets flying through his living room, and this medicine ball comes through and crashes his coffee table, and all the other aliens are thinking he's crazy.
Well, I think it's never mind.
Oh,
Yes.
Exactly. You know,
So,
because things have disappeared. We talked about that before. The rocket disappeared, that was never found, and now a medicine ball has disappeared. You've got some of those little canisters that were dropped in season 3 with the streamers.
yeah,
Some of those have never been found. It's like, and it just does. And how does he say? It makes no sense. So, you know,
right.
it just doesn't. It doesn't make any sense.
I,
How
I'll,
that kind of thing
I'll
happens.
I'll throw it out there. Maybe I made that awesome one in a million shot that I threw it that medicine ball out of the helicopter and it went down one of these metal tubes that we have in the middle of the triangle. You know, maybe it's floating around down there,
Oh, and it went into the
right?
river that flows under there, and yeah.
Right.
Wow,
So
I
maybe
hadn't
it's in
thought
that. Maybe I made that shot. I don't know.
Wow. Yeah. That was definitely interesting. And again, it goes back to that whole thing I said earlier about you throwing things at this, literally in this
Yeah.
case, to see what happens, because you got people have talked about dropping things like a flower or something, some kind of a powdery
Yeah.
or glittery. Somebody in the chat just said that a few minutes ago, something that would, you know, to see what happens. You had the anomaly, you know, the season 3, I think it was, or was it? Yeah, it was season 3, looking at the through the telescopes, and the telescopes didn't want to work in that area. So many
Yep.
weird things. It's just the high strangeness
Yes.
of Skinwalker Ranch. One of the other points I wanted to get to also, and this one was really, really cool. And I had kind of talked about this before it ever happened, thinking, why don't you guys, you know, and again, here we are, armchair quarterback saying, hey, they ought to do this.
Yeah.
And you actually did this one. I was thinking about was
Oh,
bringing
yep.
out the indigenous folks and having them, um, you know, in this case, come out and do tribal music uh,
Yes.
with the drum. And this Blazing Bear came out and they did their experiment out there playing. And then you had that thing with the thermal camera. You were picking up the
Yep.
rocks up there. Is that the rocks at the spiral up on the hill, or was it just close to it? Or
So this one, I think, is actually it looks more like when the two things come down from the sky and go in
oh well, I
between.
got that too. There's the guys. There's Blazing Bear
Okay.
here, and there's the rocks up on the mesa. I do have that also that I want.
Okay. So if I remember right,
They were talking about the rocks heating up, and Travis
yeah.
was going, you know, saying, "Eric, take a look at this," you know, because the rocks
Mhm.
are heating up. But that was pretty amazing to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the ones that I think they were talking about was more on the face of the mesa because that little you can see where the edge of the mesa is there,
Yeah,
and
the slide.
you can't really see any of the formations or anything up
Okay.
above it. All you can see is that line. And so
Okay.
what I think you're seeing there is maybe something lighting up behind, but I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and watch the recording itself. Um,
And then when they stopped playing, it cooled off immediately.
yeah. And that is where maybe that is some of those rocks sitting up on the edge because I know there's a place where there's some rocks sitting on the edge, and then some of the areas that I'm thinking too where we could see it warming up and cooling down were more on the face too. So it was a couple different areas that it was doing that.
Yeah, and then of course there was this scene right here
Yes,
where we
that's the one I
saw
was thinking.
the objects that looked like they were heading into the mesa. And this was a couple shots of it. And I do have a little bit of a video here where you guys were watching this happen
Hmm.
as you were looking at the results. And this is where Eric is pointing out to you. He saw this. Hey, you guys, nobody noticed this until Eric was reviewing the footage from the thermal camera. And you know, there they go right there. Boom, boom, two of them.
Yep.
And they follow, and yeah, everybody's like, what was that? You know, so right there, I mean, that right there, that's amazing.
Yeah, and to me that was I think you actually see what I was thinking was that you could see the edge of the mesa there and it was like they were coming in behind it is
Mhm.
what I thought. So very well could have been going into something back that way. I don't know. And that's where then you know very high possibility with what we saw with the camera recording and what we call the in and out experiment.
Yeah, yeah. Um, which is where I wanted to go next.
I know I knew where you were wanting to go with that. So.
You know, I mean, and here we go. You were talking earlier about the Cameron flying the helicopter and having to do the night vision. And one of the things that he did, he put the night vision on and he was flying. And one of the things he said was, and again, if I would have been in there, and you see right here, you see Eric sitting in the back there. And he says, it just something went by. It looks like small orbs.
Yep.
And he's the only one that's seeing it because he's wearing the night vision goggles.
Yep.
I mean, I'd be a little freaked out. You see the look on Eric's face. He's like, huh? What? And again, objects flying by. I mean, would that not freak you out if you were sitting in there? What is he seeing through those night vision goggles that nobody else is seeing?
I can tell you, it makes you a little nervous.
Pete. A little brown socks again. Yeah.
Right.
And I talked about this. There was we kind of went over this several times, but again, you've got this one right here, and that was the anomaly.
Yep.
The UAP. This in my mind was definitely a UAP that flew in and out of the Mesa, and that story goes along talking about going back to the indigenous peoples, talking about something that happening, and they've seen it. Other people have seen it.
Yep.
And then you guys actually caught it on camera. It was
Yes.
amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah. And I can tell you, with what you're going to see in season 5, you're going to see that behind the scenes work that Eric did with the blob.
Mhm.
Well, you're going to have to wait a while to see what Eric is doing now in reference to this.
Wow. Okay.
Because that's where if I don't know if he's doing it so he can put it on the website or if he's doing it for the show, which I'm sure he's probably going to be doing it in reference to what we're going to hopefully be doing here in the next couple weeks. But yeah, like what Eric is doing with this model and in regards to the in and out is very impressive.
Yeah.
And the angles just the amount of things he's taking in consideration and doing for this is nuts.
Yeah, this and I can only imagine. I mean, if you get data like this, and I'm showing that here, and where it splits up, boom, there's 2 of them.
Yep.
When you get data like this, you have to take this to the next level. And how that's done, I have no idea. It takes the mind of somebody like Eric,
Yeah.
to figure out what to do next to try to capture this. But it is absolutely imperative to try to take this to the next level and figure out what this is. I've got one more here, and this was the one that appears, and it looked like maybe, and I talked about this right there, how it manifests right there. It looked like it was coming out of the Mesa. I don't know. I was a little unsure if it was coming out of the Mesa or if it was just simply coming out of it was actually coming out right there where the anomaly was. If it was coming out of like a wormhole manifesting right there somewhere between the helicopter and the Mesa. And then the helicopter was flying towards it, so it looked like it was coming at him, but when in fact it was possibly just sitting still and the helicopter was flying towards it. But for it to and you can actually see, I'm going to back up here just for a second and then play that. You'll see it just all of a sudden right there. It just appears. That's incredible to me. That evidence right there is, again, with the blob and some of the other stuff, is right there on the top shelf of evidence that you guys captured. That just blows my mind.
Now, isn't this the flight where you all felt a heaviness, a pressure in your chest? And that's when you had to end the flight because something wasn't right.
Yeah, so we had a lot going on that night. This was the night we were doing the 2 rocket launches, so we had a vertical and a horizontal.
Yep.
And we did a couple of those launches. And this is also where I found why the ranch messes with Travis so much is it's an Alabama fan. Because when you look at the triangle in a certain way, it's the Alabama A, just perfect. So, but yeah, So Travis and Tom are on top shooting the horizontal rocket, and then Bryant and Joe were down on the ground shooting the vertical rocket. And what we were doing, and so this is one of the questions: is like, okay, is that light possibly a reflection off one of the rockets we launched as we come flying by? And our safety procedures is Cameron. We were down on the west side of the property watching these rocket launches. I got some cool videos of it from the helicopter. And only when we got the okay from the ground guys saying, hey, the rockets are on the ground, we know they're on the ground, come on through Cameron. That has always been one of our safety procedures in regards to whenever we're launching rockets and we have the helicopters. Is the helicopters don't go fly through an area until we know all the rockets are on the ground.
Right.
And so we know both rockets were on the ground at this point that the helicopter is coming flying back towards the command center. And then again, this is why Eric is building this one model of this and to try and answer a bunch of any question that might come up in regards to how fast the light's moving, how fast was the helicopter moving, where was it exactly? So he's going through, I can't tell you how many hours of footage, I'm sure, in reference to this, to model this correctly.
And talk about a couple of key locations, right?
Yes.
Entry point, exit point, right?
Mhm.
What's the XYZ of that? And
Yes.
yeah, to Caleb's point, I mean, that's the kind of thing that's why Eric doesn't sleep.
Yeah, exactly. The man never sleeps. Yeah.
Oh, and then this is what's going to be so cool with season 5 is this was such a pivotal and focused upon part of a bunch of the experiments that we were doing. So you're going to get a lot of data and information in regards to what's going on between the triangle and the East Canyons over there. Like, and there's some really cool stuff coming out in regards to that at this point, the amount of it, the repeatability of it, there is no way anybody can deny that there's anything that something's going on out here at this point because of, again, a bunch of this information, and that it's going to be so cool. And then on top of that, again, like the 5 really mind-blowing things, like you think season 4 was a ride. Just wait for
yeah. And it was definitely a ride for us. And I, you know what, that's the thing. And that's why I mentioned that earlier about, people coming on and saying, oh, it's all scripted. They're just making this crap up, blah, blah, blah. And all that. It's like, man, you don't watch the show. You truly don't watch it if you're saying that, because if you did, you wouldn't be saying that. And you convinced me a couple seasons ago that there's something incredible and mysterious that's happening out there that we have to find out what it is. And again, we talked about the fact that it's happening around the Uintah Basin, but focusing right in that spot on Skinwalker Ranch. I think that's the epicenter of what's happening in that area. So man, I totally applaud you guys with what you're doing, the things you've thrown at this to try to figure it out. And I can't wait to see what the next evolution is. I know you've teased it some to us.
Oh, I
And Pete
know.
going out there and Pete throwing his expertise and technology at it as well. I mean, it's man, I really can't wait. I don't know, Mike. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, are you
Yeah, I think it's great to see the scientific process in action.
yeah.
Because back to what you were talking about early on, Caleb, you have to collect all the data, everything, because you don't know where a pattern is going to emerge. And
Mhm.
that's the scientific process. Look at all the data, look for patterns, and then come up with a hypothesis and see if the data supports it. And then come up with an experiment to test the hypothesis and see if you can prove it or falsify it. So seeing that play out and getting a lot of and there's so much more information that you guys provide behind the scenes with the insider program
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
it just fills out so much more. It fleshes out what's going on, and you understand the thought process and the logistics of things so much better. It just makes it so much more enjoyable to watch things unfold as they
Well,
do.
It's been really fun for me because like I've learned a lot on the science side of things, if you will.
Sure.
And
We
like,
all have.
right. I'm pretty much Pete's assistant a lot at this point, and I tell him, "Don't blame me if it breaks out here. It's the ranch. It's not me." So he if anything breaks while it's under my control, it's the ranch that breaks it. It's not
Yeah,
me.
the anomaly did it. It's not what
Right? It is the anomaly that did it, right? So all I have to do is not fall over when I'm carrying this land scanner around, and I'm okay.
Oh, come on. Come on.
But like just learning how that works, and then also I've like we use some of this technology in the law enforcement side, so that's been really fun for me. Is going, oh, it's very similar to me as it feels like an investigation on the law enforcement side. We're gathering as much evidence as we can that's hard, provable, and you can't argue against it.
right.
And then on top of that too is the witness side of it, and getting those stories and seeing where it all comes together, and trying to take that step back and going, okay, what's the big picture?
Yep.
And there's so much of it, especially now. We've been doing this for, well, I've been on the ranch now almost coming up on 6 or 7 years.
Wow.
So it's like there's stuff from before the show that is becoming much more valid, and based on some of the things that we've got, and it's not just me too. So I know Tom's had a lot of stuff. Tom's been out here a year longer than I have. So is Eric. So there's a lot of information that when it all comes together, it's going to be really interesting to see how the story is told.
This, Kaleb, you're touching on something that reminds me of, I'm sure you've been asked the same thing, what's your favorite part of, working at Skinwalker Ranch, which, a lot of people would like to be able to do. For me, my answer is, the short answer is, we're everybody's assistant, right? To me, the best part of working on the ranch is this is going to sound like nonsense, but I'm 100% sincere. It's if one of the guys is compromised, and frankly, that's more often than not, it's me. I'm freaking out or cursing up and down or whatever. Whatever, I can look at whoever I'm out there with, and a lot of times it's Kaleb, and Caleb's cool, and like, okay. And what's interesting is over time is that I'll speak for myself, but I'll be wondering about Caleb's reaction to this. You sort of go, oh yeah, right, that again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that again. Oh right. And I think about this a lot. I think about this happening and go, how can this be, right? I just saw, a bright light in the sky. I'm like, oh yeah, that again.
Yeah. Oh,
what?
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah. Think about, like Jeff said earlier. Think about the amount of UAPs that we've caught.
Yeah.
And I actually just happened to talk to one of the producers earlier today, and he's like, and they're going through when working on what's coming up to season 5. He's like, I forgot just how many UAPs we caught this last year, like more than any other year.
Yeah.
And I completely 100% agree with Pete. Is at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing that I'm going to take away from this is the relationships that I built with these guys.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And a lot of them hate that I bring this up. I'm the youngest one out here, so
Oh.
But for me, it's like I just have nothing but respect for a lot of these guys because of just the amount of information and knowledge that they have, and then just being able to rub shoulders with them. And then
the point I didn't sort of finish making is that, like, if one of us are going, oh, that old chestnut again, right? Or holy, what? there's somebody else there who is taking notes, who is logging stuff, or who is, and that's pretty great. I mean, that's I've never been in combat, but the stories of combat sort of feel like that, right? It's wow, what just happened?
Oh yeah.
And there's always people, well, always there are people who react one way to that kind of situation and people who react another way. And what a pleasure it is to be in the company of people who can do both. But there's always somebody close by who will be like, oh, I got this, we're good. It's just cool. It's important work.
It is very important work. True.
Yeah, and with under the scrutiny of millions of people, right? Who all want the same thing. What the hell is going on here?
Yep.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and Pete's hitting on a lot of stuff there. Like we see so much stuff, or have seen so many things, that some of it we're like, oh, that again. Right, which is crazy, because how many people would love to come out here and just see something like that?
Right.
Right. And it would just make their day.
Yeah.
And we're at the point where we're like, oh, that's another one. Right.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand of that, like, some of these things that we've experienced are pretty, they're nuts. Like, and for me, that's, there's things that everybody gets caught up in, like, gets excited about, tries to take it all in, is living in the moment there. But then there is that guy, like, exactly like what Pete just said. I'm beating that dead horse a little bit. There's that other person that goes, oh, and they're kind of doing what they need to try and get a good piece of data there.
Yep.
And I guess that's one thing on my side is, I'm obviously going to go back to military and police stuff. Is I've responded to those things. I've had any cop can tell you they're crazy calls, and there's things that catch us off guard still, or whatnot, and we get a little bit surprised. But you're trained to continue to be able to work and do what needs to, and try and capture what you can in the moment and take control of the situation and maintain some kind of control. And that's where I think what's been good is you kind of see us getting better at that out here.
Oh, absolutely.
Last couple of years, right?
Yes.
And we're not as,
and you keep watching knuckleheads like me struggle with it, right? Because it's whatever the biases we all bring.
Yeah.
If there's a plus side to what we're talking about here, is sooner or later you have to find the ability to take your bias and just put it over here.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You have to, for all the obvious reasons we've talked about a lot, but that's what's cool about, for me, the best part is, when I'm compromised in whatever way, I got cats like Kaleb, like, come on, man, you know better.
Yeah. Pete's giving me some stuff. I'm like, Pete, you realize I have to go out there now and look for this by myself? Like, thanks, Pete.
Oh, yeah. Wow. And that's something that you guys have built a fantastic team, for sure. And we feel like we're all part of it, and that's the thing. It really, and not only because of the insider program, but simply because of the way that the show is produced and the way that you guys all stick together as a team. Every person, and this is something that I know Travis had mentioned, was that every single one of you are an investigator into this process. You might have, everybody has their expertise, but you all are together working on this together, and you're all part of it. Everybody's input is valid. Everybody's input is needed. And you're all, again, like I said at the beginning, you're all experiments. You're all part of the experiment yourself as well. So, as well as your equipment and everything else. So I tell you, I applaud what you're doing out there. I really do. Can't wait for season 5. And I know Christina brought up a thing here she put in the private chat, was that when we were out there at Phenomicon last year, and I want to throw this out there to anybody who's thinking about going to Phenomicon in September. If you can, you need to go. It is one of the best conventions that I have ever attended. It really is, and you get to meet all of these guys while they're there because they're all coming and going and walking around and shaking hands and stuff like that. Very personable, but you all seemed so excited because you were filming during Phenomicon. You guys were filming season 5. And
Yeah.
you came in there and you could just see and hear and feel the excitement that you all were having during your experience doing what you were doing on the ranch. You couldn't talk about it, but you were all excited about it. And that right
Oh,
there,
yeah.
I was telling, we were talking to her and I were talking about it going, oh man, I can't wait for season 5. Look at these guys. I mean, they're just,
Oh yeah.
And that there is the worst part about working at the
Oh
ranch.
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
only
worst part.
imagine.
Especially
Yeah.
at Phenomicon, when like-minded people and we become friends, and wow, I'm interested too. So am I. But
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
oh, you just want to. Oh, it's the worst part.
Oh yeah. It's like it's one of the things that helps keep us sane. I think is like Pete and I actually talked about something a couple weeks ago, just through like a text thread, if you will. And you know, it's like there's only so many people we can talk to about this stuff,
Right.
and for a certain amount of period, right?
Right.
But then also, it's like think about the stuff you're not going to see in the show because they just can't fit it in.
Exactly. That's the other part of it. Less than
And
1% is what we see.
and we know there's some stuff that you know for some reasons they're not going to ever put on the show, but we're going to talk about it on the website. You know, if you guys aren't going to show it, we're going to talk about it. Like that's, you know, there's so much like that where people need to know more of the behind the scenes kind of thing. And obviously you all hear us gripe that our production company won't break the fourth wall
Yeah. No.
with
Yeah.
their stuff.
Yep.
And I know their reasonings behind it and everything. And as frustrating as it is, it's what they do and it's fine. But it's like, just think about over the last 5 years, we always get the comments about, well, if all this thing's going, how are you getting footage? Because the amount of redundant cameras we have.
Yep. Exactly.
And if you guys could see even just a part of how many times our sound guys going, this isn't normal, or the camera guys are going, yeah, I've never seen this and I've been doing this for 20 years. Cameras don't do this.
Yeah, the crew could have their own show.
Oh, I
Yeah,
bet.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
yeah.
This has been fantastic. Mike, you got any last thoughts you want to bring up or points? I know we could go on for hours, honestly, but we just I don't want to hold these guys up. I know they've honored us with giving us some of their time, but
I think it's safe to say that there's something in the Mesa, and I think it's safe to say that there's something over the ranch.
yes, I agree 100%. And I think it's safe to say that eventually these guys are going to find it and show us.
It's these guys.
Yes.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully we can get it there to you guys. So
yeah, I appreciate it, man. This has been fantastic. I really love it, guys. That you, Shannon. You know, Shannon's in. I see she's out in the chat now. She's under the weather. A lot of different things, but I appreciate and Shannon. You know, let me know she will be back. She definitely will be back. She just unfortunately could not be here with us tonight. But in the event of her not being here, look who we got, Pete and Kaleb to jump on board. And we even saw Eric pop in a few times. I was wondering, does he take tips too? I mean, does he require
right? just my lovingly bubbly personality, I guess.
There you go. Fantastic. Well, this has been one heck of a show. Like I said, I could keep you here all night. I won't do it, I promise. But I did want to thank you so very, very much for coming on with us here tonight. We're going to be talking about each and every episode of season 5. We're going to start off doing these on Wednesday or on Thursday nights. because I think it's going to overlap with the Curse of Oak Island, which also is a program that I talk about quite a bit. So we're going to do these on Thursday nights until a Curse of Oak Island is done. Then we're going to switch them to Wednesday night. So be prepared for that. I hate doing it. I hate switching nights like that. But Wednesday night is basically the night I have free to do most of the podcast. But we will do them on Thursday night until then. And I'll be reaching out to the guys, during this as the season goes on, and seeing what we can find out from them, a little bit more detail about what's happening in each and every episode, because we know that'll also be in the Insider program as well, which I still love the Insider program. Fantastic thing going on. But thank you guys very much, Kaleb and Pete. I really do appreciate it. Mike, thanks for being here and co-hosting tonight. And you're going to see more of us as we go through the season. And I really, again, thank you so much for being here. Folks, thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. I know we went way long, but it was well worth it. Was it not? Mike, what do you think?
I don't think we went long at all.
I could go for a little longer, probably.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys. It's always fun. Always fun. Buckle up. Season 5.
Yeah.
Can't
Thanks,
wait.
Jeff.
2 weeks.
Enjoyed
away.
it. Thanks for having me on. So,
all right. Have a great night. All right, folks. Thank you very much again for being here with us. And we'll catch you next time right here on the J Free 906 podcast. Good night, everyone.